Okay, so Shavuot Tov, everybody. Nachum just raised the issue of Halloween. Halloween is, as Nachum says, not a Jewish festival. It began life as a pagan festival, originating from an ancient Celtic tradition, which they used to dress up and ward off ghosts. That's what it was about. It was about warding off ghosts, which is why they dress up as ghosts and do all sorts of silly things like that. But that was where it started. And then, so it became, the celebrants believed that there were barriers between the physical and spiritual world. And during this period of Halloween, which was previously called Samhain, Samhain, you could look it up. During this period of Samhain, the barriers between the physical world and the spiritual world would be broken down, allowing interaction to occur between the inhabitants of the physical world and the netherworld, the world underneath the sort of the non-physical world. That's where it began, the issue of Halloween. It then became a Pope Gregory III designated November the 1st, not the 31st of October, the next day. He designated that day to be called the day to honor all of the saints of the Catholic Church. And it became known as All Saints Day. Now, because that was November the 1st, what happened was that there became a sort of a blurring of the margins between the 31st of October, which was this Samhain festival, this pre-Halloween thing, and the All Saints Day. And then the day before this All Saints Day of November the 1st became known as All Hallows Eve. Hallows, we know what hallows mean, yeah? Whoever went to a non-Jewish school will know the Lord's Prayer, right? How does it go, the Lord's Prayer? Something or other, hallowed be thy name, yeah? Hallowed
Our Father that art in heaven, hallowed be your name.
That's it. Yes. Okay, so hallowed. Okay, that's enough. We don't need to hear anymore. That's enough. Thank you. Yeah. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So hallowed means holy. And so this night before All Saints Day, which was November the 1st, so the night before of October the 31st, became known as All Hallows Eve, because it was the eve, it was Erev, the day where all the saints, the hallowed ones, were honored. So All Hallows Eve, the night before All Saints Day, became suffused with Samhain, and over time it got called Halloween, as Hallow Eve, Halloween. So it came as Halloween, and then all the ghosty things came from Samhain. So Nachum is absolutely right. It is not only is it a pagan festival, it is a Catholic festival. And it is a Catholic festival which celebrates the Catholic saints. Well, we know, don't we, that the Catholic saints were not so saintly when it came to dealing with the Jews. So I agree with Nachum that Halloween is not really an appropriate festival for us to be celebrating. Like everything else, it's become commercialized, and I'm pretty sure that 99.9% of the people who enjoyed themselves messing about last night did not know the significance of it. You can argue that it's just a bit of fun for kids, but I think that it's important that we know, just as a matter of education, what Halloween is all about. So Halloween is a started life as a pagan festival and then got all mixed up with a Christian festival of All Saints. And it's by celebrating Halloween, you are supporting, I suppose, and giving homage to the Catholic saints and some peculiar Celtic netherworld ceremony. So that's Halloween for you. I agree with Nachum. We should try not to have much to do with it, although I don't like to be a spoil sport for the kids. But perhaps we should use it as an opportunity to teach them something about their own history rather than celebrating other people's histories. That's just my view on Halloween. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up, Nachum. I'm sorry that you had an unpleasant experience last night, and happy birthday to Johnny Halpern, whose birthday it is today, I believe.
Oh, Mazal tov.
Mazal tov. Okay, let's get back to things which are of more importance to us, which is Shmuel Aleph, chapter 9. Let's just start by putting it on the screen for a start. I have to get it on my screen before I can share it with you. Hang on a moment. Shmuel Aleph, chapter 9. There it is. Okay, here it comes. There we go. You should be able to see that now. I hope you can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Right, so we spoke at some length last week about the first two psukim of this chapter. We spoke about the physical the physical appearance, sorry, of Shaul. Michael Leaf, who's not with us this morning, did agree with me that handsomer is not a proper word, but apparently it is. He looked it up in his, oh no, he said it wasn't. It was in his Oxford Concise Dictionary. The word handsomer was not there. So we're agreed that handsomer is not a right word. But there you go. So we talked about Shaul's appearance and how he was head and shoulders above everybody else. He was taller, and we spoke about the significance of that. We now are going to come to a very unusual story. Now, bearing in mind that everything in Tanakh is meant to be there to be assessed and teach us something, we read the story last week. We're going to read it again, the next few psukim, and then we're going to delve into this, the meaning of this peculiar story about the donkeys belonging to Shaul's father. So, Leon, if you would just remind us of the story by reading verses 3 to 13 inclusive, please.
One day the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. And Kish said to Saul, his son, "Please take one of the attendants with you. Arise and go, search for the donkeys." He passed through Mount Ephraim and he passed through the land of Shalishah, but they did not find them. They passed through the land of Sha'alim, but they were not there. And he passed through the land of the Benjamites, but they did not find them. They came to the land of Zuph, and Saul said to his attendant who was with him, "Come, let us return, lest my father stop thinking about the donkeys and worry about us." But the attendant said to him, "Behold now, there is a man of God in this city, and the man is esteemed. Everything he says is certain to occur. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us which is our road upon which we should travel." Saul replied to his attendant, "Behold, if we go, what shall we bring to the man? For the bread is gone from our vessels, and we have no gift to bring to the man of God. What do we have with us?" The servant spoke up once more to Saul and said, "Behold, I have a quarter of a silver shekel with me. I will give it to the man of God, and he will tell us about our way." Formerly in Israel, this is what someone said when he went to inquire of God: "Let us go to the seer." For the prophet of today was formerly called the seer. Saul said to his attendant, "You have spoken well. Come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of God was. As they were climbing the ascent to the city, they encountered some maidens going out to draw water. And they said to them, "Is this where the seer is?" They answered them, saying, "It is. Behold, he is just ahead of you. Hurry now, for he came to the city today, for the people are bringing a feast offering today at the high place. As you enter the city, you will find him before he ascends to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat before he comes, since he blesses the offering. Only afterwards do the invited guests eat. Now go up, for you will find him as surely as it is day."
Okay, thank you, Leon. So that's the story. We've just, inverted commas, wasted 10 psukim on a peculiar story, the end of which is that Shaul meets the prophet Shmuel, and which is what we're going to see in the next few psukim. Why do we need to be told all this stuff about lost donkeys and maidens at the well and all sorts of things, that he didn't have any money and all these kind of things? So we need to actually have a look and see what we can gainsay from this, what we can actually look and see. Why are we being told this? What can we learn from it? And what is the Navi trying to tell us underneath the surface of this story? Those of you who were in Shul yesterday and heard the drasha, I said over a drasha of Rabbi Sachs about a story which was underneath a story. And here again, we have a story underneath the story. And what we have to do is we have to try and find out what's going on underneath this story. So let's start by reminding ourselves that this is the lead up, the prelude to the coronation of Shaul to be the first king of Israel. So we need to then remind ourselves of what a king of Israel is meant to be like. So we need to flick back to Sefer Dvarim to tell us exactly what that's like. Sefer Dvarim, Perek 17, which should be on the screen for you now. There you are. There it is. And verse 14, Leon, please start from there.
"When you come to the land that Hashem your God gives you and possess it and settle in it, and you will say, I will set a king over myself, like all the nations that are around me. You shall surely set over yourself a king whom Hashem your God shall choose. From among your brethren shall you set a king over yourself. You cannot place over yourself a foreign man who is not your brother."
Let's stop there. Let's stop there. So that's the first criterion for the king of Israel, is that he has to be, well, there's first two criteria, I suppose. God has to choose him. So you want a king, okay, but democracy only goes so far. We had a discussion about this a couple of weeks ago. Democracy only goes so far, and God will do the choosing. You say you want a king, okay, God will choose. And it's got to be from among your brothers. So that explains the first pasuk, does it not? The first pasuk tells us that Shaul had yichus. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, going all the way back to Afia. So there's no question. He ticks the first box. He's not a foreigner. He is your brother. Interesting, isn't it, that from the tribe of Binyamin, we spoke about this last week, Binyamin was nearly wiped out. And it was only at the last minute, as it were, that Binyamin remained within the fold. But of course, now it's only just occurred to me, but perhaps that is why God chose a man from Binyamin to be the first king to, I suppose, put the seal on the reconciliation that he is your brother. Binyamin is your brother, and a man from Binyamin is now fitting to be the king. So that's the first two criteria. God's going to choose, and he is your brother. So we can tick that box. Let's go back to Devarim. The next verse, Leon, verse 16.
Only he shall not have too many horses for himself, so that he will not return the people to Egypt in order to increase horses. For Hashem has said to you, you shall no longer return on this road again.
Okay, let's stop there. So we've spoken about this before, haven't we? That the idea that a king should not have too many horses. Horses are depicted in Tanakh as being the ultimate power tool. Okay, I suppose they're the F-35s of today, or whatever the most powerful tool is that we have. Philip will no doubt correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the Merkava, whatever it is now.
No, you're okay. You're okay.
Oh, I'm doing okay. Okay, thanks, Philip. Right, so the horse is the symbol in Tanakh. The horse is the symbol of physical power of the nations. Okay, I'm going to show you a few places now in Tanakh where we see this. One of them you will recognize very, very well, I hope. But I'm going to show you one that you might not recognize so quickly first. And that is in the book of Yeshayau, Isaiah, chapter 31. You will see in chapter 31 of Isaiah, the very first pasuk. Here we are on the screen for you, Isaiah chapter 31. Leon, first verse.
Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and who rely on horses. They trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. And they did not depend on the Holy One of Israel and did not seek out Hashem.
Okay, so there we have it, very straightforward. Isaiah is saying, woe to those. And you can see in that pasuk, there is a good way. No, first of all, there's a bad way and then a good way. The bad way is woe to those who rely on horses and trust in chariots. And the opposite is they didn't rely on the Holy One of Israel. So what should they have done? They should have relied on Hashem. So don't rely on Hashem. Don't rely on horses and chariots. Rely on the Holy One of Hashem. Rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not on physical power. That's Isaiah. Does that remind you of anything? Does that remind you, I've just said, don't rely on horses and chariots, but rely on Hashem instead. Does that remind you of anything? It should do.
King Solomon?
Go on further, Michael.
Well, he fell by the wayside. He got too many horses, too many wives, and too much wealth.
Correct. Yes, we'll come to him. Yes, he fails on every account. And that's why this Tanakh is important, because this Tanakh, this Navi, this Shmuel Aleph that we're doing now shows us how Shaul actually fulfilled every criteria. And we're going to see that as we go along. But that particular pasuk, that particular idea in the pasuk of not relying on horses and chariots, but relying on Hashem should ring bells with you. Yes, Jeffrey?
Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Shakespeare's words of Richard III was a horse, a kingdom for a horse.
Okay, it wasn't what I had in mind, but I'll buy that. Yes, okay. What did you say, Johnny?
Yetzias Mitzrayim, with the Egyptians with the chariots.
Yes, we say that. We see that the Egyptians came out with 600 chariots and they got drowned. They got drowned. That's correct. Yes, Paul?
We say the psalm every day after Ashrei.
Thank you very much. Do you know where that is? Which psalm it is?
No.
It's Tehillim 20, and it's on the screen for you now. It's on the screen for you now. And Paul is absolutely right. Welcome back, Paul. We've missed you. And there it is, verse 8. Those of you who daven in the morning will recognize this. Eile varechev ve'eile basusim ve'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazkir heima karav v'nafalu ve'anachnu kamnu v'nitodad Adonai Hoshea HaMelech Ya'anenu B'Yom Korenu. Translate that for us, Leon, verse 8.
Some with chariots and some with horses, but we, in the name of Hashem our God, call out. They slumped and fell, but we arose and were invigorated. Hashem, save. May the King answer us on the day we call. Okay, there it is. We say it every morning. It's between, well, we don't say it every morning because there's certain mornings we don't say it. For example, we don't say it during Chol HaMoed. We don't say it when there's a simcha on, depending on what it is. It's the Lamnatseach. There it is there. Lamnatseach Mizmor David, which we say every morning in between Ashrei and Uvalet Zion. By then, you're already starting to think about taking your tefillin off. So you're probably not concentrating as much as you should. But there it is. Every single day we say the same. We say this. Eila varechev, eila vasosim. They trust in chariots and horses. Va'anachnu ba'oz b'shem Hashem Elokeinu nazkir. We trust in God. Now, if this is Lamnatseach Mizmor David, who came first, David or Yeshayau? David or Isaiah, who came first? Well, you've got a 50-50 chance. Go on, have a guess. David came long before Yeshayau. So Yeshayau in chapter 31 is really over here that Leon just read. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for aid and who lie on horses and trust in chariots, is plagiarizing Tehillim. I'm sure that David HaMelech wouldn't mind being plagiarized, but that's where it came. That's where it comes. So we know, don't we, from all of these things. There's another one coming up here in Yehoshua, which we learned together in chapter 11 of Yehoshua. I'd be very impressed if you can remember this. Anybody remember where there was a reference to horses in Yehoshua chapter 11? Ruby would know if he was here, that's for sure. He's unbelievable. He's got a complete photographic memory. You know, he can tell you not only the chapter and the pasuk of every verse in Tanakh. He'll tell you where it is on the page, at the top, at the bottom. Unbelievable. His memory is his photographic memory. B'li ayin hara is something absolutely out of this world. I don't think I've ever met anybody with a memory, a photographic memory as clear as his. But he isn't here, so he won't be able to help us now. So I'll have to tell you, there it is, chapter 11 of Joshua, and they was told over here, verse 9. This was after they had won their battle. Verse 9. Joshua dealt with them as Hashem had told him. He hamstrung their horses and burnt their chariots in fire.
Okay, that's what they were told. Let's just go up to verse 6. Sorry, I should have done verse 6 first. This is Hashem's told Yehoshua.
Do not fear them, for tomorrow at this time I will deliver them all as corpses before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots in fire.
Why was Joshua told to hamstring the horses and burn the chariots with fire? Because they are the symbol of the power of the army. Okay, what would we do in our armies here today? Well, what happened in 1967 was they destroyed the airfields in Egypt. Whoever's got air supremacy is likely to be the victor. They destroyed it on the ground. In effect, what happened on the first day of the 6-day war was what happened in verse 9 in Joshua. They crippled their horses and burnt their chariots in fire. The Israeli Air Force, the IAF, destroyed the Air Force of the Egyptians on the ground, effectively crippling their horses and burning their chariots with fire. Ein chadash tachat hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. So I think we've really got the idea here that this idea in Devarim chapter 17 where we're told don't get too many horses, is a message. Don't be too powerful in the armed forces idea, because it will lead you to trust in those and to fail to trust in Hashem. And then we won't be able to say what we say in the last pasuk of Lam Natsech Mizmor David, Adonai Hoshia HaMelech Yaneinu B'Yom Karenu. The king should answer us on the day that we call out. And that's the king with a capital K, the king Melech Malchei Hashemayim, the king of all kings. Melech Malchei Melachim, I mean. So now let's go back to Shmuel. We have here a story not about horses, but about donkeys. Okay. Now, I won't say that donkeys are the opposite of horses, because that would be silly. But in terms of the implication, horses imply strength, armed forces. I think we've proved that beyond all doubt, that in Tanakh, horses represent the power of the human being in war. What do donkeys represent? Donkeys represent something completely different. Yes, Jeffrey?
They're beasts of burden.
They're a beast of burden. That's right. They're not a beast of war. You won't be much use going to war with a donkey. So it's an anti-war animal. It's a beast of burden. Where do we encounter donkeys in Tanakh?
Oh, Aleph, Barach.
Marcel, where do we encounter donkeys?
For the Akedah.
The Akedah, yes. The Akedah, we read it last week. The Akedah, Abraham saddled his donkey, got up early in the morning, and my son, Bobby, has just come in and said Bilam and Balak.
I was going to say that, Bilam.
Bilam's donkey was a rather special donkey. So the donkey is an animal which we meet in Tanakh in a positive way. I'm going to show you a pasuk from my favorite book in Tanakh, my joint favorite book in Tanakh, which you should know which is by now, and that will show you where we get the idea that Mashiach will come in on a donkey. Even though I don't think Mashiach will come in on a donkey, it comes from my favorite book. My favorite book, or equal favorite book with Sefer Yonah, is Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah. And if you look in chapter 9 of Zechariah, you will see that there is a pasuk that tells you what will happen at the end of days. I just have to find it now, which verse it is. I did have it ready, but now it's gone. There we go, verse 9.
Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout for joy, O daughter of Jerusalem. For behold, your king will come to you. Righteous and victorious is he, a humble man, riding upon a donkey, upon a foal, a calf of she-donkeys.
Okay, so he's talking about Mashiach, your king. Notice on the screen, king is with a small k, okay? That's indicating that it's not Hashem he's talking about. He's talking about your king shall come to you. He's talking about the future time of Mashiach. It's allegorical. It's not to be taken literally, unless you particularly want to take it literally. But then I think you might be waiting a bit of a long time. But the idea is that Mashiach, the king, will come. He's just, he's victorious, he's humble, and he's riding a donkey. He's not riding a horse. If you think about the films that you've seen, the hero of the film, think about all the westerns. What do they say? They gallop in on a trusty steed, a big strong horse. I don't know how I came across this the other day, but I came across a film which made me smile with nostalgia, because I think I mentioned it once before. I came across it just in the last week or two, because I got in real trouble for this. And this was the Mark of Zorro. And I got in real trouble because I pinched Jeffrey and Marcel's father's letter opener, which was in the shape of a sword. I pinched it and went home and did the mark of Zorro on all the furniture in the house. And my mother went absolutely ballistic with me. Uncle Harold wasn't all that bothered that I'd nicked his letter opener, but my mother went absolutely ballistic because I did Zs everywhere on all the furniture, and I copped for it good and proper. But anyway, why am I telling you that? Because I just happened, I don't know, maybe the kids were watching or something. I saw this clip from the Mark of Zorro, and there he was riding on this black trusted horse, and you could see that the horse was the symbol of power. And look at our pasuk, our king, the Mashiach, according to Zechariah, he's not going to come riding in like John Wayne or like whoever it was that was Zorro there, and be the big hero on a big strong horse. He's coming in on a donkey. Abraham Avinu rode a donkey, right? The donkey is a symbol of humility. It's the anti-horse symbol, if you like. Yes, Jeffrey.
And Muhammad's dream, he went from Jerusalem to heaven on a donkey.
Okay, well, that's probably where they got it from.
And the other thing which is significant about horses is they measure the power of motor cars by horsepower.
Good one, good one. So again, another example of the power of horses. So what we want to say here, let's go back to Shmuel. This whole story about donkeys is an anti-horse approach. The king of Israel, we know from Sefer Dvarim, we've just read it out, is not allowed to have too many horses. What's the opposite of a horse? I said I wasn't going to say what the opposite of a horse was, a donkey, but it is. In Tanakh terms, the opposite of a horse is a donkey. So we're now associating Shaul, with the anti-horse idea. Okay, so Shaul is now associated with donkeys. He's associated with the animal which is the opposite of a horse. We're told that a king shouldn't have too many horses. Shaul is somebody who deals with donkeys and not with horses. Okay, so that's the first thing to notice about why Tanakh seems to be emphasizing in this chapter that Shaul is not a man who is connected with horses, and it's precisely for donkeys that he goes out looking, not the horse, which provides the rider with a sense of power. So there you are. So that's Zechariah. He tells us about the king coming in on a donkey. So what's the next thing that the king we're told about the king in Sefer Dvarim? Let's go back to that. Verse 17.
And he shall not have too many wives, so that his heart not turn astray. And he shall not
Go on.
And he shall not greatly increase silver and gold for himself.
Okay, so the first thing I want to look in that pasuk is he shall not take many wives for himself, and his heart must not turn away. Is one thing there a consequence of the other? Is the heart turning away a consequence of taking too many wives, or is that two separate things? Don't take too many wives, and also don't turn your heart away. Is there a cause and effect there? What do we think?
There is a cause and effect, because basically, if you look at the subsequent kings, their wives turn them away from God.
Okay, give me an example.
Jezebel.
Okay, good. You mentioned one before, Michael.
King Solomon.
Yes, let's have a look at King Solomon. Let's go to Melachim Aleph. Melachim Aleph, chapter 11. There it is on the screen for you in blue. First four verses, Leon, please.
King Solomon loved many foreign women, in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh. Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, from the nations of which Hashem had said to the children of Israel, do not come into marriage with them, and they shall not come into marriage with you, for they will surely sway your hearts after their gods. Solomon clung to them for love. He had 700 wives who were noble women and 300 concubines, and his wives swayed his heart. So it was that when Solomon grew old, his wives swayed his heart after the gods of others, and his heart was not as perfect with Hashem, his God, as had been the heart of his father David.
That's a pretty damning description, wouldn't you say? I mean, we've asked this question before in our shiurim, and maybe this is something that we need to discuss in some detail, and perhaps we'll do it when we get to Melachim Aleph. At this rate, it's going to take us a few years to get there, but nevertheless, hopefully we'll all get there. King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, who is gets great billing in Jewish personalities. He failed on every single count as a king. If you look at his life and compare it to Dvarim 17, he failed on every single point. And here, the one we're concentrating on now, here these verses in Melachim Aleph tell us very clearly the reason why we're not meant to have so many, a king is not meant to have so many wives, because his wives turned away his heart. In 2 Psukim, verse 3, his wives turned away his heart. Verse 4, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not whole with Hashem, like the heart of David, his father. So we see that very clearly. Having a lot of wives is a cause and effect, as Michael said, and why anybody would want 700 wives and 300 concubines is beyond me, but there you are. I'm not Shlomo HaMelech, so I can't begin to understand that. Yes, Paul?
One or two wives be more inclined to, more able to, because they'd have more attention. It doesn't really make sense.
You mean you're not going to be able to give 700 wives enough attention that they would actually turn your head away from anything? I shouldn't imagine you've got any energy for turning your head away from anything. Yeah, I think you've got a point. Anyway, whatever, however,
you choke on the little blue pill, Johnny.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes more is less, Philip. Less is more, I mean. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I take your point, but the fact is, it did happen. Now, just before you come in there, Jeffrey, I just want to show you something from the book of Proverbs, which is Mishlei. Who wrote Mishlei?
Shlomo HaMelech.
Shlomo HaMelech. Have a look at chapter 31. Chapter 31 of Proverbs, verses 1 to 3.
The words of Lemuel the king, the prophecy with which his mother disciplined him. What is it, my son? And what is it, O son of my womb? And what is it, O son of my vows? Give not your strength to women, and let your conduct not destroy the protocol of kings.
Okay, there you are. This is Mishlei, written by Shlomo HaMelech. And what Shlomo HaMelech is indicating here is that not only did he realize that he'd sort of overdone it on the wife front, that interesting, isn't it, that his mother chastised him. Even though he was the king, his mother has chastised him. This is Shlomo HaMelech writing this, and there is a chazal that tells us that the words of Eshet Chayil, which we all sing on Friday nights, Eshet Chayil mi yimtza, a woman of valor, who will find her? And then we go on to extol the virtues of an Eshet Chayil. That is written in the words of Shlomo HaMelech. But Chazal tell us that actually it was written by Shlomo HaMelech's mother. Who is Shlomo HaMelech's mother, by the way?
Bathsheba.
Bathsheba wrote wrote Eshet Chayil as a chastisement for Shlomo. Shlomo's got 1,000 wives and concubines, and she's saying to him, Shlomo, what's the matter with you? Go and find a nice Yiddish girl. Eshet Chayil miyimtza. Go and find one.
Sheker Achen Vehevel Ayovi is so wrong.
We know your views.
It's not correct. It's written wrong.
It was written by an ugly woman. So
Bathsheba was.
So Shlomo is being told here by his mother, you've got all these foreign wives. Go and find an Eshet Chayil. Go and find one that's worthy. Eshet Chayil miyimtza. And that's where Shlomo recognizes that. Now, what's that got to do with Shaul? Let's go back to our pasuk here and see what was going through. They came to this place, and the servant says to him, we need to go and find this man of God to see if we can find our donkeys. And so we're going to come back to these pasukim in a minute, but I want to talk about the in order of the criteria for kings. And the first two we've dealt with, which is he's got to not be a foreigner, and he's also got not to have too many horses. We've dealt with that. And he's not to have too many wives. And what happens is they come to they see these maidens coming to draw out water. Let's just read verses 11 to 13, please.
As they were climbing the ascent to the city, they encountered some maidens going out to draw water. And they said to them, is this where the seer is? They answered them, saying, it is. Behold, he is just ahead of you. Hurry now, for he came to the city today. For the people are bringing a feast offering today at the high place. As you enter the city, you will find him before he ascends to the high place to eat. For the people will not eat before he comes, since he blesses the offering. Only afterwards do the invited guests eat. Now go up, for you will find him as surely as it is day.
Okay, so Shaul says to these young maidens, why do we need to know that they're young maidens? Well, you'll see in a moment. He said to them, is the seer here? How could they have answered? They could have said, yes, he's over there. And instead, they went through this very convoluted answer, complicated answer. Yes, he's come and he's over there in the city, and there's going to be a sacrifice today, and nobody will eat. What's all that got to do with anything? Is he here? Yes or no? That's what he's asked. So the Gemarah in Brachot asks this question. The Gemarah realizes that this was a very long, drawn-out answer to a very simple question. Now, ladies, brace yourself for a piece of sexist Gemarah. Are you all ready, ladies? Here it comes. Brachot, if you want to look it up, it's page 48b. And the Gemarah says, V'korkach lama. Why did these maidens go on so expansively while speaking to Shaul? Why did they give him such a long answer? Says the Gemarah, Lefi she'hanashim dabraniot hein. Women are chatterboxes. They can't shut up. Women are talkers. They can't give you a straight answer to a straight question. That's what the Gemarah says. I never said it. Gemarah says it.
Why am I not surprised?
You were warned, Barbara. You were warned. So the Gemara says that, but you'll be pleased to know Shmuel disagrees. Not our Shmuel, Shmuel and Navi, Shmuel in the Gemarah. Look, have a look what Shmuel says. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, he gives a different reason. They spoke they gave a whole long answer. Kedei lehistakel biyofyo shel Shaul. They gave a long answer because they wanted to look at him because he was a good-looking bloke, and they were enjoying looking at this good-looking fellow. So they gave a long answer so that he would stay there and they could look at him and enjoy the appearance of Shaul. And he quotes our pasuk, our chapter. Shmuel here quotes our pasuk. Dichtiv, as it is written in our pasuk. He was head and shoulders taller than everybody else. And of course, we said before that he was ready for this, Michael Leaf. He was handsomer than anybody else. So according to Shmuel in the Gemarah, the women gave a long answer in order to gaze upon him. And so what we find, to go back to our pasuk here, to our chapter, they're flirting with him. In modern language, the girls were flirting with him. Now, what is Shaul's response to that? Okay. Verse 14.
Before I read that, Johnny, is that Shmuel HaKatan?
Could well be. Yes, possibly. Yes, may well be Shmuel HaKatan. No, it's not. David's telling us it's not Shmuel HaKatan.
Oh.
This is Rav and Shmuel, presumably, David, is it?
Yeah. Rav and Shmuel Amoraim. Shmuel HaKatan is much earlier. Yeah. He's a Tanner.
Yeah, correct. This is Rav and Shmuel, one of the pairs of the Amoraim. Shmuel HaKatan, as we learned last week, is in the Tanakh, but it could have been, couldn't it? Because he was a very humble person. He wouldn't have approved of looking at good-looking blokes or women, I suppose. Right. So, what does Shaul do when these girls are flirting with him?
So they ascended to the city.
That's it. He doesn't get involved. He doesn't answer. He doesn't flirt back. He doesn't pick himself a wife. The well, of course, has form, does it not, about being the place where wives are to be found. Last week's parsha, Eliezer, or if it was Eliezer, Eved Avraham found Rivka there. Yaakov found Rachel at the well. Moshe found Tzipporah at the well. Shaul could have found somebody here at the well. Seems that they were quite keen on him, according to the Gemarah. So what we can see here is that he did not get distracted by the attraction of young maidens. And what the Navi is hinting at here is that Shaul was not somebody who was a womanizer, who was going to be drawn away from his job as king by multiple wives, in contrast to Shlomo HaMelech, who very much was drawn away from what he should have been doing, as we read very clearly in Melachim Aleph a few minutes ago. So the story is now beginning to take shape. We can see that this story is giving us clues as to the character traits of Shaul, and not only the character traits of Shaul in general, but the character traits that Sefer Dvarim tells us are vital for the king. Let's go back to those character traits. Let's go back to Sefer Dvarim. So we've now dealt with, where are we? Yes, we've now dealt with the fact that he's not a foreigner. He's not got many horses. and he's not likely to take many wives because he's not a womanizer. Let's go back to no, let's go on to the second half of verse 17 now.
And he shall not greatly increase silver and gold for himself.
He's not to be very rich. Okay, he shouldn't be very rich. Why not? Because he will think that he is all powerful. Money makes us say, "Kochi v'yotzim yadi." I did it all myself. Aren't I clever? Aren't I brilliant? Aren't I powerful? So he's not meant to have too much money, this king. But the whole thing of this, of course, is meant to keep him from becoming haughty. He's meant to be humble. Again, we speak about the donkey idea. He's humble. Let's go back to Shmuel's story, to Shaul's story in Shmuel. So we're going on now, and we see here we go. Verse 10.
Saul said to his attendant, "You have spoken well. Come, let us go." So they went to the city where the man of God was. As they were climbing...
No, this is not what I want to do. No, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I need to go back. Yeah, go back to verse 7.
Saul replied to his attendant, "Behold, if we go, what shall we bring to the man? For the bread is gone from our vessels, and we have no gift to bring to the man of God. What do we have with us?" The servant spoke up once more to Saul and said, "Behold, I have a quarter of a silver shekel with me. I will give it to the man of God, and he will tell us about our way."
Okay, so again, Tanakh is hinting to us here that Shaul is skint, right? He's gone off to this place looking for his donkeys, and he's got nothing. He's not got a penny. His servant has got to bail him out. They're going to go and see the Rebbe, and Ein Chadash Tachat HaShemesh. The deal is, you go and see the seer, the Rebbe, you have to give him a shmiya. You have to give him a few bob to get what you want to know. So he says, what we're going to give him? We've got nothing. And the servant says, I've got a quarter of a shekel, which is not very much. But it's more than Shaul's got. Shaul here is clearly not a man who is going around with pockets full of silver or gold. The servant has got more than him. It's another hint to us about Shaul's character. Shaul here is not somebody who is overly obsessed with money. He's not carrying around with him lots of money when he goes out, and he has to rely on the servant. Even the servant has got more money than him. It's another little hint that Shaul is the kind of person who fits the bill, according to Devarim 17, of the person who is going to be the king, who is fitting to be the king of Israel.
He might have had his car teeth with him.
Yeah, he didn't have his kartis ashrai. That's right. So let's just have a look at Yeshayau, chapter 2 of Isaiah, verse 7.
Its land became full of silver and gold, with no end to its treasures. Its land became full of horses, with no end to its chariots. Then its land became full of false gods. Each one of them bows to his own handiwork, to what his fingers have made.
So there you go. This is Yeshayau, Isaiah, saying, bemoaning the fact that the king, his land became full of silver and gold and full of horses again. So here, the story of Shaul is telling us he's not a man of horses. He is your brother. He's not a womanizer. and he's not somebody that is really keen on money. So far, he is doing very well. What is the next demand? We've got a few more minutes. Let's just finish by going back. Philip, are you waving at me because you want to say something? No, you were just altering the screen. Okay. Let's go back to Devarim. What else has he not got to do? Let's have a look at verse 18, 19, and 20.
It shall be that when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself 2 copies of this Torah in a book from before the Kohanim, the Levites. It shall be with him, and he shall read from it all the days of his life, so that he will learn to fear Hashem, his God, to observe all the words of this Torah and these decrees, to perform them, so that his heart does not become haughty over his brethren, and not turn from the commandment right or left, so that he will prolong years over his kingdom, he and his sons amid Israel.
Okay, so what's the bottom line there is verse 20. He's got to keep a Sefer Torah with him at all times. He's got to fear Hashem. Why? So that his heart will not be haughty over his brothers. So that's another criterion that the king must fulfill. Let's go back to Shmuel Aleph and see if Shaul fulfills that criterion. Well, I think he does. Look at his attitude towards his servant. He takes advice from him. He's not arrogant. He doesn't say, "What the hell do you know? You're just a servant." He listens to him. He says, and he's not concerned with his own kavod. Come, let us return, lest my father cease to worry about the donkeys and worry about us. He's worried about his father worrying about them. He's somebody who concerns himself with the feelings of others. He's concerned about going up to the seer, the prophet, empty-handed, and he says to the lad, the Na'ar, he says to him, "You've spoken well." Can't remember exactly where that is. It's a bit down here. He says, "Well said." There you are, verse 10. Tov dvaracha. You've spoken well. He's speaking nicely to this guy, to this servant. He's speaking as if he was speaking to an equal. He's not speaking down to him. He's not haughty over his brothers. And all the way through this story, you see that Shaul is humble. So if we go back to Devarim and we again look at our tick box of what the man has to be in order to be the king of Israel, in order to be fitting to be the king of Israel, he has to be one of your brothers. Tick, he's from Binyamin. He shouldn't have many horses. Shaul is interested in donkeys, not horses. He should not have too many wives. We've seen he's not a womanizer. He shouldn't have too much silver and gold. The guy's got nothing. He's got to rely on his servant to bail him out. And he's not got to be haughty over his brothers. We've seen he speaks nicely to his servant, and he's concerned about the feelings of his father and of others. So it seems to me that at this point in chapter 9 of Shmuel Aleph, that at this point the Tanakh is setting us up to realize why Shaul is being chosen by God to be the king. This whole convoluted story about donkeys and maidens at the well, which we didn't need to know for the main story, if you like. The main story is Shaul meets Shmuel. Shmuel says, "You're going to be king," and we take it from there. But the story under the story that we talked about at the beginning is that the Tanakh is very subtly teaching us and giving us the information that we need to know as to why Shaul was chosen. Now, obviously, this is the a technique that all writers, authors use, and that is they build you into what they take you down one path, and then they show you that that's a blind alley, and then you take you down another path. If Shaul was such a good guy and he fulfilled every single criterion that there was to be had from Devarim 17, then why did it all go wrong later on? Why did Shaul have the dominion taken off him? Why did it not work out? And where was the character fault in Shaul which led it all to go so wrong? Because it started off so very promisingly. So we'll stop there, and next week we will discuss, we'll go on and we'll discuss the next stage, and we'll see later on why Shaul did not remain as the king. Come to you in a sec, Philip. Why the Shaul did not stay as the king, because as of now, where we're up to now, verse 13, the Navi has given us every reason to believe that Shaul is the perfect candidate for the job of king of Israel. I think, Jeffrey, you wanted to say something, and then Philip.
Well, I was just going to say, we attribute Shlomo with having great wisdom, and I don't know whether it's fully justified.
I think that's a very fair comment, and hopefully when we get to Melachim Aleph and we speak about the reign of Shlomo, we'll go into that in some detail. I think that is a fair comment. Not so clever, if you ask me, to have 1,000 wives, but there you go. Yes, Philip.
About Shaul, at the beginning he was okay, but it's human nature to change. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, I think that may well be the case, and we'll see as we go along we see that actually in pretty much all of the kings of Israel, that power corrupts, and we see that.
It can corrupt. It can corrupt Gaboim also, by the way.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe. Okay. Any other comments? Preferably less contentious than that. Any other comments? Any questions? Yes, David, and then Paul. David.
Yeah. Do you think it's worthwhile going back to that Gemarah Brachot, where you've given two reasons why the maidens there procrastinated and gave this long answer to Shaul? The third reason given by the Gemarah is quite interesting as well.
Okay, there it is on the screen for you. Rabbi Yochanan said that this whole talkativeness was deliberate from Hashem in order to delay the coronation of Shaul, because it wasn't right that it wasn't time yet for Shmuel to hand over. And even by a second, Hashem was not prepared to take away from the leadership of Shmuel and give it to Shaul, even a second before its appropriate time. And therefore, he had to put in a bit of delaying tactics for these women to have a chat and have a look at Shaul while they were there. I don't know. Didn't really. What do you think about that, David? I didn't bring it out because it didn't actually tick my box. That.
No, and also because it doesn't add to the case that you're making for the qualities of Shaul in relation to what's prescribed in Parashat HaMelech.
And neither did the first one that women are chatterers, but I had to say it. I had to show them the Gemara.
Of course.
Paul.
I just wanted to comment, as I mentioned, I said to you, it says already in Vayechi, in Bereshit, that the scepter shall not pass from Yehuda. So he never had a chance because he wasn't, he didn't fulfill the criteria right from the beginning. And it was already known. It wasn't something that came later. It was done right back in Bereshit.
Yeah, you've got a very strong point, Paul, and I can only suggest that we understand the scepter shall not pass from David in the light of hindsight and knowing the history. Perhaps to the brothers at that time when they were receiving those brachot, perhaps it wasn't so obvious, and perhaps it was only, perhaps this was, if you like, Ruach HaKodesh, in that it was said with divine inspiration without it actually necessarily meaning what it meant in hindsight. I'm struggling really to give you a possible answer because I agree that's a strong question. I'm sure that many of the Meforshim asked that question. And who would like some homework to try and find that? Who volunteers to try? Paul, there you are. There you go. That's your homework for next week. See if you can come up with some answers from the Meforshim on that question. That'll teach you to ask awkward questions. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, there we go. Shavua Tov. Everybody who is a paid up member, please, Jeffrey, you want to comment? No, Jeffrey's just saying goodbye. Okay, anybody who's a paid up member, please come to the meeting on Tuesday night. We need at least 25% of you. I mean, that's 25% of people, not 25% of each of you. All of you need to come. All, you know what I mean. Please come and be part of the meeting and vote and see what needs to be done. And let me go on. Shavua Tov, everybody. See you.
Shavua Tov, Johnny. Thank you very much.
Johnny, I've got to tell you something. Johnny, I've got to tell you something. I was in Jerusalem yesterday, went to daven in the Stiebelach.